How did you expect to be treated when you arrived here in the UK?
I was taken to a detention centre. And in fact, I didn't know what a detention centre was because it was a prison environment, big walls, all sort of things, keys and everything. It was a prison. But I was there for a week or so before I was released into the community. And I didn't have much information. But even if I had the information, it's still not right to keep people in detention centre because I came to seek asylum. I didn't feel it was right to be locked up straight away in a detention centre. And from other experiences that I've had with the detention centre, it is an indefinite thing. You don't know when you'll be released. If someone has come to you to say, I want sanctuary, I am running away from this, I don't think that person should then be locked up again, because it does cause so many mental, psychological effects on this person. Because I'm looking at you, for instance, I just want to use that as an example. I'm looking at you as someone who can save me, only to run to you. And what do? Lock me up. So I think it's not the best thing to do, really, to keep people in detention centre. No. People should not be treated as if they are criminals. People should be treated as if they have come for help, they have come for refuge, and they should be treated in that manner.
You were detained in Yarl's Wood Immigration Removal Centre. How did you come to find yourself there?
I would like to make a correction here. It is branded Yarl's Wood Immigration Removal Centre. But from experience and from the practical aspect of it, it's not a removal centre. It is a detention centre. It is a concentration camp. I was locked up in Oakington. That was another detention centre. At first, when I first arrived. And then later on, I found myself in Yarl's Wood Detention Centre. And I ended up in Yarl's Wood because I was working illegally. And I was locked up in prison for working illegally. And then taken, after serving the prison sentence, I was then taken to Yarl's Wood Detention Centre. So that's how I ended up in Yarl's Wood. Yeah.
What was everyday life like there?
It was a miserable experience. Very, very miserable. Depressing. And fearful, full of agony and pain. Been in Yarl's Wood for a year or a little over a year. Every day when I woke up, I didn't know what was going to happen to me. Because, like I said, in the prison, when I was in prison, I knew when my sentence was going to end. But in Yarl's Wood, I didn't know when I was going to be released. Or what was going to happen to me. I didn't know anything. It's like just waking up every day, going around the circle, thinking about what's going to happen, if I was going to be deported, if I was going to be released. And that's the thing that goes on in my head every little day. I mean, every day. For 1 year, in that kind of a circle. The fear of going back. The fear of being left in Yarl's Wood indefinitely. The fear of being separated from families, from friends, from my community, which I've developed for nearly 10 years here in the UK. It was just unimaginable what was happening in my life. Every day was a depressive day. Every day. Yeah.
So you've just mentioned that you were in prison.
Yeah.
What were you in prison for?
The first time I was in prison, I was sentenced to prison because I was working illegally in the UK because I didn't have the papers to work. And I only went to work because I needed money to keep myself and my daughter. And then the other bit that took me to prison was when nearly a year, when I spent a year in a Yarl's Wood Detention Centre, there was a demonstration which I led when a woman was going to be deported. She was dragged nakedly, and about 6-7 guards pressing down on her. It kind of appealed to everybody's consciousness. Everybody started crying because she was wailing and asking for help. That was the 6th or 7th time that she was going to be forcefully removed from the UK. So spontaneously, people just reacted, and there was a demonstration. There was no damage to anything. There was no injury to anybody. It was very, very peaceful. But following that demonstration, I was taken back to prison. Being made an example of, yeah.
How do the staff relate and behave towards all the people in the centre?
Male staff just barge into our rooms. They don't wait for you to say, come in, or who is it? Before you could hear the knock and the end of the knock, they are right inside your room. Women who have suffered domestic violence, women who have suffered all sorts of other kind of violence in their lives, and then being barged into their rooms in an isolated place where they are going through torture of being locked up again, and then male just barging in like that. It's not an environment that is friendly. Last year, October, there was an incident that was reported of a sexual abuse of guards, against detainees. And that was a detainee that could talk about hers. So many other ones happened that never came to light. You would see the way that guards would talk to you as if you're no human being. Sometimes when females come around and say that they're sick, but they're never taken seriously to be sick. The next thing that you will hear from even medical staff that should be concerned about health, about human beings, will tell you, no, you're saying this because you want us to release you so that we don't deport you. They don't treat the human in you. They treat your immigration. I have heard, and in fact I witnessed my own roommate at a point in time when she was taken to the airport. She was handcuffed to be taken to the airport. When she came back, she had bruises on her wrists. And when we asked her what happened, she said the UKBA guards that took her were beating her up because they want to forcefully put her on the plane. Pregnant women have been detained in that place. Pregnant women, for that matter. I'm not saying that anybody should be detained, but take a look at pregnant women. And most of them are at their advanced stage. I have seen somebody who, it came to a point that she broke her water whilst in detention before she was believed, before they could bring a chair to take her for medical attention. And she's been telling them that she was feeling pains. But they didn't want to believe her because they thought she was doing that so that they could release her. But why should releasing her be more important than the life of a newborn baby and the mother? Why?
Are there children in Yarl's Wood as well?
They used to detain children and their mothers in Yarl's Wood, but after so much campaign and looking at the policies and everything, that did stop. But still, women are still separated from their children because they have another detention center where they house children away from their mothers when their mothers are locked up. And that's run by another organization.
What kind of changes do you personally believe need to be implemented into migration and the asylum-seeking system here in the UK?
There's a lot to change in the system. The burden of proof is on asylum seekers, which should not be. Because if we go to the criminal justice, someone is still not guilty until proven otherwise. But in the system of asylum or immigration, the very minute that you meet with an officer, you are guilty. There's so much pressure on the part of the officers who are doing processing or who are interviewing people or who are making decisions. And this pressure is coming from wanting to reduce numbers. Because there's no human being that I think is that nasty that would not want to take time to listen to another person who is fleeing persecution. Take a look at somebody who's interviewing you, for instance. After all the interview, they will not ask you to read what they've written. They write it. They don't tell you to read. They just pass the paper and say, oh, sign here. And then you sign. Because there's control, power, and authority. At that period, you are lost. You don't know what you really need to be asking as your right. Credibility is always damaged every second. And there are sometimes some people are not even comfortable. Let's talk about people who have, say, of my sexual orientation, or people who have been victims of rape, for instance. How do you want somebody who's gone through that kind of a journey to just sit down with an authority person and start talking about, oh, I've been raped. This is how I was raped.
Do you think the average person would agree that Yarl's Wood and other detention centres should be shut down?
Within the time that I've been out of Yarl's Wood and now, and the average people that I've met on the streets, I've met in the church, I've met in so many places here, when they hear what's happened to people in Yarl's Wood, they're like, are you sure there's a place like that in this country? So if that kind of a reaction is coming from people who are indigenous citizens of this country, then I can assure you that they want to shut that damn place.